We're going live now.
I need access.
We're live.
Hi, everybody. I can't tell when we're live.
We are live.
All right, it's not live on my YouTube.
That's because there's like a 20-second delay.
Okay, good. Hi, everybody out in New Paltz.
Hi, KT Tobin.
We're here today really to listen to our community about what they are thinking, what their questions, what their concerns are moving forward with ending the pause and moving out of the pause. Pat Ryan just announced our region is absolutely not ready to move out of the pause on May 15th, like some of the other regions in the state are. We have some time here to gather people's thoughts and understand better where people are at. So we don't expect to have answers to everybody's questions today. There's still a lot of uncertainty and unknowns, but we're going to try to communicate what we do know, as well as hear from everybody about what their, like I said, what their questions are and concerns. So a rough agenda is I'm just going to let everybody here on the call say hello. So out there in YouTube land, everybody knows who's here on the Zoom. And then I'm going to go through the resources that you can find on the internet. And we'll go through a short list of questions that already came in through the Google form. And then Ariana will be monitoring the chat on YouTube and be feeding us the questions from there. So first off, if we could just go around and, I guess it's hard to go around and say hello. I didn't think that through, but we've got Mayor Tim Rogers. Say hi, Tim. We've got Chief Corey with competing for the best background with Julie, but I don't know, I think the fire trucks win. We've got Supervisor Neil Batez, Julie Seifert Lillis from the town board. Waved, Julie waved. We've got Chief Lucchese from police, David Brownstein from town board, Ricky Butler from the school district. Did I miss anybody? I see Bill's phone, but I don't see Bill.
I'm here.
There you are. So that's here. That's who's here. For those of you that don't know, we have and actively being updated for now what's going on. I guess it's like over 2 months, maybe 2 months now. If you go to the Village and Town websites, you can see on your screen, we have our New Paltz COVID response. If you click there, you can see a working document that basically it's over 40 pages now. I noticed the other day, full of resources and links to other places where you can get information about how our other levels of government, or at least what other levels of government are providing. The county has a very nice dashboard and website that I'll show you a little bit more in a minute. But we have right at the top of our Village and Town resource doc, every day you can go in and see how many cases we have. You can see the Ulster County trend line and get information about testing, etc. And what we have on the latest at the top of the doc there is where we are at regionally in terms of reopening. But first, let me show you just a quick look at the Ulster County COVID-19 Virtual Center, where you can go and see Pat Ryan's previous updates. He just had an update an hour ago that was really good. I encourage people to watch. And you can see case timelines, cases by town. You can see how many cases are active in New Paltz, how many total cases we've had confirmed, how many are recovered. And sadly, we've had 3 fatalities in New Paltz to date from COVID. That's the county site. There's lots of information there that I encourage people to check out. If you go to the governor's website, which is forward.newyork.gov, he has a dashboard that you can check out. I should say not he, but the state has a dashboard that you can check out. There's 7 metrics that regions need to hit in order to reopen. We have hit 5 out of 7 of those. The 2 that we have not hit yet are declining death rate and declining new hospitalizations. So you need a 3-day rolling average of declining hospital deaths for 14 days. We have 3 days. In terms of hospitalizations, we were at 2.8 per 100K 2 days ago, and today we're at 2.25. That needs to go under 2 or be at 2, no, actually under 2 in order to meet the reopening criteria. For those of you that are data geeks, you can page down here and get more information on what those metrics mean. Pat Ryan had charts on these 2 metrics in his town hall that he did an hour ago. So you can see the charts on that. So you can visually see in the charts that we're definitely declining on those. And then also on the state website, you can get lots and lots of information about reopening. One of the questions that we got leading into this call was, how are we going to ensure proper social distancing in these closed spaces, these closed inside spaces, many of which have been literally closed for a while now. So you can check this website out if construction is something that you need to know about. For all these different topic areas, you can get the summary guidelines. There's actually, I'll show you in just a sec, there's a way that owners of these types of businesses can affirm with the state that they've read and are gonna adhere to these guidelines. So you can see there's different categories, different guidelines. So there's granular, sort of directives and guidelines for at a very specific level. So if you look at, for example, at retail trade, you can see all the different stores that are covered by this guidance. You can click on the guidelines and see what the mandatory things these types of businesses need to do and what the recommended best practices are. And then also you can see that owners of these types of places can read the master guidance and then send a message to the state affirming that they read it and that they will be adhering to this guidance. So there's lots of information up on the state website. How this is all going to work is not a local decision. It's not a county decision. This is all statewide information. They're not just pushing it out, they're actually even asking people to affirm that they read the guidance. What else did I have up here for you all? That might be it on that. But I will say that one of the questions that we got on the Google form to submit questions ahead of time was on this topic, like how are we as local electeds going to make sure that social distancing occurs inside? And this is one of the ways. If people have further questions about things like construction, then Corey is your guy to talk to about that. If you have questions about enforcement, you can talk to the chief of police about that. Other questions that we got come in before the meeting started. We'll run through those quickly. I'm going to punt a couple of those to Neil. The first question, we got this actually from 2 separate people, was when is the pool going to open and what's happening with the pool? One person wanted to know if there's a way that we could limit people coming to the pool based on, zip code, basically. If we could just allow people from New Paltz, or maybe New Paltz and people in the close proximity to New Paltz to go to the pool. So there's a couple questions there for you to answer.
Yeah, so nobody wants the pool to open more than I do. I love the pool. I'm there every day. We're trying to open the pool. So we're doing some work there. We're trying to be ready to open the pool if we're allowed to, and if we can do it safely. In the end, the county gets to decide whether or not the pool opens because of the permits that we are required to get. We're looking into if we are allowed to open the pool, we need to make sure that we can do it safely. And part of that is making sure that, there's proper distancing and everything else. And we're looking into different ways to do that. One way would be to possibly limit the pool to New Paltz residents only, or, people nearby, especially if, say, the county pool doesn't open or other town pools don't open. You're then just increasing the number of people that want to go to the pool, and it makes it that much harder for everyone to keep the socially appropriate distance. So, it's the pool's an important part of the summer here in New Paltz. So we're going to try to open it if we can, and if we can do it safely. But we won't know for a while the different phases that the governor has. Recreation is phase 4, and so. And there's a 2-week space between each of the different phases. If we're not ready to open now, we probably won't be ready to open for another week, maybe more, maybe 2 weeks. If you have 2 weeks between each of those phases, and recreation can't open until phase 4, we're looking at the beginning of July at the earliest for the pool. So, it's hard to say, will we even be able to open it by August? So that's, it's tough.
Yeah, I didn't mention that in my opening remarks, that there's 4 phases and there's different sectors that will be opening in each phase. So you can get all that information of which sectors are in each phase off the state website.
I mean, the upside is, the CDC has guidelines for pools to open during COVID. The lieutenant or the chief of police was very nice and gave me those guidelines. So, and I've given them to the pool director. And so we're looking into those. And so at a minimum, we'll probably be trying to follow those guidelines when we're trying to open it up. But we'll see what happens.
Okay, another question that came in ahead of time was about tax bills that are due in June. Now I know that the village has taken action with respect to late fees. Can you talk about that, Tim? And then I don't know what's up with that in terms of the town. And we can also talk more broadly about what's percolating in DC in terms of federal aid that we hope to get to fill some of our budget holes. But Tim, I can't remember, what did we do in the village in terms of late fees for taxes?
Well, we can't do anything in terms of tax collection, whether it's collection itself or late fees. But what
I'm
we
sorry,
did,
it's sewer and water and sewer. We did something with late fees, so correct.
right, we basically eliminated late fees for water and sewer for the bills that were due March 30th. And then we closed out our fiscal year 1920 books just this month. And then what we've also done is essentially eliminated late fees for water and sewer for the bills that will be due June 30th for water and sewer, and then subsequent quarters in fiscal year 20 and 21 in that budget year. But it would require Albany to make a legislative change or do something that would affect whether or not we could collect taxes. There's nothing we can do on the local level regarding tax collection or fees if because like a late fee is actually set at the state level, not locally, for property taxes.
So it's basically the same answer for the town, and that we're watching Albany and we're watching DC in terms of any aid that's going to come down and how that's going to be filtered and how that's going to work. Many of you might have seen Tim's analysis of our budget situation where line by line, we went through what we think the fall offs are going to be. And it is a lot of guesstimating. We do know, for example, that every year there's a very short list of people that don't pay their property taxes, but we know given in these incredibly difficult times that number is just going to increase. So we're guessing at some of this stuff and we admit to that. We do land at, over $2 million hole in our budget based on our estimates. Even if we spend our reserve fund, we'll be $700,000 short. So we've been working hard to communicate up to our, Senator Metzger, Congressman Delgado, Assemblyman Cahill, and Pat Ryan, of course, about details about our budget situation. And we wish we knew more now about the answer to the tax questions, but.
Right, and I can explain a bit more about how we arrived at that $2.2 million shortfall. So that's basically a theoretical exercise. If we were to like sit on our hands and do nothing, just look at how our revenues could be impacted. And, we looked at, a lot of the smaller revenue lines like mortgage recording tax and income from, fund balances and, lots of smaller revenue sources that the village is involved in. But the three larger revenue sources are our water fund, bills that water and sewer users pay, and our sewer fund, but then also property taxes. So what we did, just for the sake of trying to draw a line in the sand and anticipate like a worst case scenario, what if we only receive 2/3 of our property taxes and 2/3 of our water and sewer bills? So we were just trying to eyeball how impactful that scenario would look like, and if we were to then use all of the money we have in each of our individual unassigned fund balance accounts, whether it's water, sewer, or the general fund, because currently if you tally those three fund balances up, it would be $1.5 million. So that's how you end up with a $2.2 million shortfall, subtract the fund balances of $1.5 million, and then if we sat on our hands, we would be negative $200,000 or negative $700,000. But I think the other advantage that the village has, and this is the way we're trying to look at this, is we collect water and sewer bills quarterly, and then unlike the town, your town property taxes won't be due again until Jan of 2021. So we'll actually have a data point sooner just because of where our fiscal year lands. We'll be collecting taxes from property owners in the village in June. So we'll know, whether individuals are able to pay or how many individuals are able to pay their property taxes a whole lot sooner. So I think that's what we're trying to do, is we're looking at, all these different instances that give us a sense of, whether people are able to pay their water or sewer bills or property taxes. And then that will help us figure out like, well, where do we need to make cuts, or how significant should those cuts be? But the other challenge that we have that's unique because we're a college town is if, and we're already seeing this right now, where we're using several hundreds of thousands of gallons of less water on a daily basis. So even if the college is paying their bills and the customers who use water and sewer in our community are largely paying their bills, like we just have that much less volume in terms of revenue, and we're expecting a certain amount of volume so that we can service our debt, because we've borrowed money over many, many years to buy things like fire trucks that are in the background of Corey's picture, or, we've done stormwater projects, or we've done the big replacement of the water filtration system at the plant. So, we have creditors who we borrowed from. We're expecting a certain amount of revenue to keep those creditors whole. Otherwise, we run the risk of defaulting on our debts.
So Adele is saying eventually all the property taxes get paid with interest, correct? I'm not sure why it's included in the shortfall. It seems misleading. That's making an assumption that those properties are going to get backfilled in a way that I don't think we have assurances that those shortfalls are going to be backfilled. I think that's the short answer to the question, Adele. Would you concur on that, Tim and Neil?
Right, and even if they're paid eventually, we have to service debt in September, right? So if people haven't paid their property taxes in June, we don't have cash, and we can't go to, borrow more money as easily, or we could probably at a much more expensive rate. So, it's like, okay, even if we're made whole at some point in the future, we run the risk of being insolvent in the interim. But what were you going to say, Neil?
So in some ways, we're lucky in the town. We're not in exactly the same boat. So we've done a lot of the same calculations, but the way our taxes work is that the county makes us whole, and then the county is on the hook for collecting the money or not getting paid. And I think that's just the difference between villages and towns. So we will be made whole as a town, and maybe that's where some of the confusion is, that people don't understand there are differences between villages and towns and the laws that apply to them and the way they work. So,
but the county's broke too. So that's what I meant by that assumption.
Yeah, but
making the property tax, making whole in the past was a much lighter lift than it is right now, or will be.
Yeah, well, we haven't heard that they will not make us whole, right? So that's the thing, right? We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I'm just saying that might be why people think that, like, the village may be getting reimbursed or paid whole like the towns are. That I'm just saying that might be why. But that's why we're explaining this and having this conversation, is that it's always a lot more complicated once you dig into it than it seems on the surface.
Yeah, I think it's easier to, like, the town has a different rule book than the village, basically. Yes. Villages came later. They're more focused on different services. It's just a different set of rules.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we get to some of the, nuts and bolts type questions. There was questions about spring cleanup. We talked last night at Village Board. We had postponed ours. Tim, do you want to talk about, I know the town is still doing their brush pickup, right, Neil?
Yeah, I think they're doing it right now. They're going to be done soon, though.
Right, so the difference between the town spring cleanup and the village spring cleanup is, in the village, in addition to taking away brush and branches and leaves, historically, we also go around and, we'll pick up like one tire and one mattress and any other garbage you leave out there. So that ends up costing the village a significant amount of money, because we then have to pay to dispose of that stuff. So what we have, we're going to do instead for this spring cleanup is to do it the way the town does it, where we're just going to pick up branches and leaves, because then the dumping cost is eliminated. Because we're in the mode where, we're not spending several thousands of dollars right now on projects while, we're running, we're nervous about whether we're going to be solvent, come fall. So we have dates that will circulate with the community. We already shared those dates with the newspaper after our board chatted last night, but the idea of to have a scaled back spring cleanup that just includes stuff that can biodegrade, as opposed to the garbage that we've picked up in the past.
There was one question: how can people get food without walking into a store? So I don't know if this question is about grocery stores or restaurants. There's lots and lots of restaurants that are doing curbside pickup. as far as grocery stores. And there's a website, we're still open, Hudson Valley. You can search that website. As far as grocery stores, I don't know about delivery. Bill, you might know about delivery for grocery stores. I know that Instacart, there were some problems there.
Casey, I know of one place, the High Falls Co-op is a place that you can order via email and then it's put out in a box for you. They'll call you for your credit card, and that's going to be going on. I think they are going to open on the 23rd. I don't know of this month, and I don't know if they're going to continue, but they have a Facebook presence and they have information on that.
The only delivery
High Falls
service
Co-op is in High Falls.
the only delivery service I'm aware of, KT, is Walgreens delivering prescriptions.
This is Michelle. Instacart is sort of shook out a lot of their problems. So, I mean, there is a fee for that, but there is that option for people who need to buy traditional groceries and have them delivered to their home.
So if people go to ShopRite.com or Tops.com, they can point and click their way to a delivery, as I believe that's what you're saying.
I done it through an app, the Instacart app directly. I don't know if you can go directly to Tops and ShopRite, but there's probably information there. I would have to look. I can look right now.
Yeah, could you look that up and circle back?
Yeah.
I do know, I've been to Tops website and you can get to Instacart through Tops. I did have a lot of trouble about a month or so ago, and I finally gave up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried a while ago, so I know they used to have it, but I don't know if it would be in their interest for it to be up and running, right?
Yeah, I'm an active Instacart orderer, so there was a lot of issues, but it seems that it has now you can, like, I ordered groceries yesterday and they were delivered this morning. So, but I did have the option to deliver same day. So all the issues where it was taking over a week shook itself out.
So
I might have made the mistake of trying to order too much. It was sort of like a $400 order. So, and I think that the people who shop choose their orders. So it's possible I should have just broken it up, so that if that's helpful.
So Christie's asked, what can be done? RE childcare, smaller schools opening. I can't go back to work if schools aren't open, and affordable daycare. So childcare has been, Corey, I think you might be able to help me out with this one. Hasn't it been on the list of approved places because they needed to provide childcare for essential workers?
If I'm correct, I think that was the only threshold, though, is it was being reserved primarily for people who were essential workers. I'm not sure much of the rest of the guidance for just a general opening. Nothing's come through our office to be able to dictate that. All I've pretty much seen is what you just said there for essential workers. Then again, I would assume a daycare would have the procedures on how you prove that and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm. I do know education is in phase 4. So Chris, we'll do a little homework on that one, Chris, just to see which phase childcare is in. It's definitely, I'm pretty sure I've heard either Pat Ryan or Cuomo address this issue. They know that there's a lot of interconnected pieces with this stuff. And that's certainly a big one. Margaret Newman asked, where's the place closest to the village center where you can get a COVID-19 test? Can't answer that one off the top of my head either. I do know a lot of the doctor's offices have it now. So if, I don't know who your personal physician is, your best bet is, if you want to get a COVID-19 test or an antibody test, is to call your doctor and work from there. But there is much more broader testing availability than what we were experiencing a month ago, or even 2 weeks ago. Do we have any other questions, Ari?
KT, I'm looking at the sheet itself, and I feel like there was a follow-up question about the Village's spring cleanup, and it seems like it was asking, well, when are we going to do the larger household items? So I think it's the same thing that we've been saying, is like that piece of our spring cleanup has been postponed. So, you know, if we can figure out a time, maybe it's later this year, maybe we will not do it in 2020, but the larger household items are on hold, but we'll do the biodegradable stuff, branches, leaves, etc. This month and going into June if we need more time.
And Rob, Chief Rob reminds me that there is still childcare available. The county has a program of childcare for essential workers at Lenape if people still need that.
Yeah, that is through the YMCA, and they have great educators there who are helping to run that.
We don't have any more questions.
No.
There was one, I saw one on the sheet.
Check it out. What did I miss?
They're saying that emerging research on the virus through analysis of contact tracing is indicating that the viral transmission in outdoor public spaces accounts for only 0.3% of the cases worldwide, with indoor shopping venues at 3 to 5%, and the remainder of contact trace transmissions taking place at indoor venues, including workplaces, medical facilities, restaurants, and homes. What is becoming clear is that in closed public,
I thought I covered that, Neil, with the.
Okay, yeah. Well, so I just wanted to say, like, what are we doing for encouraging trails? And I think we have been strong advocates since the beginning at the local level and at the county level to make sure that these trails stay open, and if they're not open, to open them up, because I for one think that it's really important, especially for us here, to get out. So I didn't know that was covered. Sorry.
I did miss that little mention of also how do we get people to responsibly use our parks. And yes, all of us have been very strong advocates for our open spaces staying open and our trails staying open. And we've partnered with the Community Foundation. They bought lawn signs for us to post about wearing masks. I've spent many hours out on the trails in Main Street giving out masks, as did Tim and several others. Police up to their presence on the trails, foot and bike patrols, and have been giving out masks. I think we've been actually very aggressive in trying to be out there and make sure that people are social distancing outside. And we've all been extremely cognizant of the fact that our well-being needs these open spaces, especially, you know, the idea of getting outside is different. If you're a homeowner with a backyard, I can just jump in my backyard right now, but tenants don't always have that opportunity. And we're 74% rental units in the village. So it's real important that people feel okay, you know, walking down Main Street and walking on the R2R, and the R2R and the Wachkill Valley Rail Trail have been great partners in this. We've tried to do everything we can to make sure that those spaces stay safe for everybody to be able to be out there. And you know, I think that what we've done with the masks is emblematic of our efforts of trying to just really be out there and present, and making sure that that people can, you know, be compliant. And I'm grateful to the state and federal government that we got all these masks to be able to give out for free, because that's really helpful. I mean, I was like, you know, you can't tell people to do something and not give them what they need to do that. So we have thousands of masks, still have masks at the police department. People can pick them up. People can pick them up at Family of New Paltz. People can pick them up at Food Not Bombs on Wednesdays. And if anybody, you know, needs masks, you know, let us know. They're reusable cloth masks. We're, you know, we've made an effort to get them out to the apartment complexes. We did get a lot, not a lot, but several inquiries about people who said they needed them for work. People should know that it's your employer is obligated to adhere to all these social distancing guidelines, and workers need to be provided with masks. If you're having issues with that, email me, kTobin@villageofnewpaltz.org, and I can help you out. There's a whole process for reporting these things. But workers, absolutely, you should be getting masks and being protected.
Julie, Millbrook Preserve is open as well, right?
Mhm.
Yep, Millbrook Preserve is open. If anyone wants information about that, they can go to the website millbrookpreserve.org. And there are 3 entrances at North Manheim, one at North Manheim, one at George Danskin Way that is open, and one at Sunset Ridge. So all 3 of those are open. And the website has a map. You can, you know, pull up your map even when you're in there on your phone. And we do have entrance signs at the entrance, including the signs that the town and village were putting out, asking people if they would wear masks. And just from personal experience, you know, it is a great place to go to find a lot of space and not crowded. And we, you know, people are they tend to be local, and they are really respectful about giving each other space. You know, we sort of, everyone, it's neat because the trails are they're actually narrow, and that's a benefit because you're not even trying, you know, you can't pass that other person. You know, no one needs a yardstick. People move way off the trail, and that's how, and let, you know, one of the people, one party move past. So, and there aren't bikes, it's no bikes, and that's, you know, so that's no worries about that. So.
I can't tell you how many people have said to me that the Millbrook Preserve has been a lifesaver for them.
Yeah.
I think its days of our best kept secret might be over, especially with the trail map now.
Yeah, and we've
It's not in adulthood yet, but we're getting there.
well, we do have a lot of, you know, recent improvements, signage and bog bridges, so we almost have no muddy places. I get to go in there now without my giant bog boots, so sneakers will do, and that's thanks to a great degree and to the recent new visitors who are making the trails hard, and there's no leaves even on the trails, so that you're not worried about the leaf litter having ticks in them. So it's really a good place now. Thanks.
So we got a, you know, speaking of tenants, we got a question. Do we have to let landlords into our homes to show places to prospective future tenants? Corey, do you know?
That's an interesting one. So I guess a few disclaimers first is I mean, I can only speak for the village. I'm sure it's no different in the town. The local municipality doesn't get involved with third-party contracting when it comes to the tenant landlord contracts themselves, leasing and whatnot. So we don't really have a mechanism for enforcement for things like that, but there is an interpretation to be had here that might be useful. I'm going to start by referring to what's been going on with the realty industry. So if there's any realtors on, feel free to chime in. I know that they've been able to show homes as long as it was one person by themselves, meaning the prospective buyer can come in, they can see the house by themselves, they can go outside 6 feet away, they can ask their questions, but it's not like the traditional walking around the house, you know, together asking questions, pointing things out. I don't know if that guidance has changed. That's come from the state.
So Corey, if I could just jump in.
Yeah,
That there is change. We actually dealt with this issue. A question arose. Landlords cannot show as of now, because of the executive law, actually executive order and pause. A landlord does not have the right to show an occupied apartment right now. When we received this initial complaint, we looked at the we looked at the ESD's guidance on essential services, but we ultimately contacted the landlord or the illegal eviction unit that the county started, and we spoke with the attorneys there, and ended up getting a ruling from them on that. And this was right at the end of April, and basically we're told as of now, until things change in the pause order, they cannot do that. And I would assume that would be extended with regards to the extension on evictions that the governor signed. This is before he even extended the pause on evictions. But if need be, like I said, we did get this directly from the county's task force on that.
Rob, if I could ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad. It's nice to hear that there's a concrete answer. So what happens when people get this information is we receive a ton of these types of questions in the building department, because typically that's where these questions are usually aimed. So I spoke earlier about a mechanism of enforcement. You're referencing the task force. I'm sure there's more questions regarding this issue. You gave a nice concrete one, but who would a tenant, or even for that matter, a landlord, be contacting? I want to say probably this task force.
So the county set up, and they set up in a illegal eviction unit. I'm not exactly sure what their title, specific title is, but it is. It's comprised of two attorneys, primarily two attorneys from the public defender's office, and they will entertain any tenant complaints regarding illegal evictions from landlords, or the attempted to be illegal evictions. So the idea that if a landlord were to turn off water service or heat or electricity, that would all constitute an illegal eviction. And this task force was put into place to help us navigate the pause order and how we would deal with these issues. So we're taking, we're taking a lot of guidance from them on this. That's what they're specifically tasked with, and that's why we went to them in this particular case. I would say to any tenant, you go to the county. I think there's a link to the county's website. On the county's website, there is a link, and there's a form you can fill out, and there's contact information there for anybody that has questions about that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. I want to give a thank you both. You can see this is like us. This is like everybody gets to see our meetings all the time. We talk all the time, and we learn stuff constantly. So we're learning this too, from Corey and Rob. So I'm glad that this came up. And I want to give a shout out to Alex Wojcik, who's our landlord tenant point person on the village board. And we'll make sure that this information is put on our resource doc. And we actually even have, Alex has a special resource doc just for landlord tenant issues, and a special form just for landlord tenant issues, where both landlords and tenants have been, feeding in their issues to her so that we can understand what's happening. So if you go into our resource doc on the village website, you can find the landlord tenant section, and you can find that special resource doc just for these issues, which we will now update with this new information, as well as you can find that form if you have any questions or issues that you want to report. And really, Alex is village. She's been dealing with these issues townwide, and I know that Neil and Dan have been helping her with some of those issues. So don't feel like if you live in the town outside of the village that you don't have a resource. Like we're here we're town tenants too. Okay, new questions. For Corey from Christie, what's the process of getting a building permit for, say, a deck? Is there a backlog of applications once construction is deemed as essential?
That's actually a really good question. Just so everybody knows, again, I speak for the village. I wouldn't want to speak for the town and their processes. We've been open this whole time, the building department. We've been moving through the process. To directly answer your question as what the process is, it's the same exact process through filling out an application. We've just changed it to where, obviously with the village doors being shut, you can get it offline. We've changed the application on the village's website so that it's a fillable PDF. So you can fill it out, you can print it out and bring it to us, or you can fill it out and email it to us. And being with what's going on right now, we help you through the process. So we want to make sure you succeed. So if there's something missing, we work with you, we go through it. It's pretty simple. You can give us a call in the office. You can email us. Again, there's a lot of information on the Village of New Paltz's webpage, specifically under our section. Specifically to the deck part of it, we're not doing certain types of permits for certain things. We're having a strong conversation with people wanting to do work, whether work is essential or non-essential. I know that's probably going to be a second question coming up. There is a lot of guidance that has come through, and I understand it completely. So we've been doing a really good job of making sure, ultimately what this is all about anyways, is that people are being safe. Excuse me. So, a deck is a little bit less intense. It's easier for us to do inspections without getting into a large conversation. We've been able to and been very successful with starting a virtual inspection service through things like Zoom, Google Hangouts. FaceTime has been the big one. It's been extremely successful for us. It actually kind of streamlined the process too. So it hasn't helped with the backlogging, because we do have a lot of permits in front of us now as far as what we're reviewing. We do a first come, first serve basis. So I understand a deck might be small and easy, but I want to treat everybody fair. So we're processing them every day. We're going through them. We're processing, we're reviewing, and then we're issuing where we can. So I don't want to give you a concrete timeline. We're telling people right now to give it to roughly 2 weeks at most to receive an answer on your building permit. Case by case too. I know I just told you it's first come, first serve, but some are actually faster than others. So the more information that you give us, Chris, for your permit, the faster it is for me to process it. That's like my big advice to anybody who ever wants to do work with the building department. The more you give us, the easier it is. And the easier it is for us to help you. Let's see, did I answer everything? Once construction is deemed as essential. So that's a separate question too. I don't want to drag on. I know KT in the beginning had shown some guidance from the state about the phases. There's a big section in there for phase 1 in construction. There's a guideline in there. I don't want to read it top to bottom. I would invite everybody to go check it out. It speaks to some mandatory requirements when the pause order is lifted and we start getting a little bit into the construction projects. It's not just going to be a free for all. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. when the building department opens it up, it's not just going to be everybody who could work. We're still waiting on guidance from the regional government, or we're honestly waiting to hear what's coming from the state government. We're going to be following those the guidance that are in that document. So I invite everybody who wants to do work, especially contractors, to take a look at that. And I'm open for anything. So you can call me, we can have a conversation, and we can figure it out. Hope that answers your question, Chris.
We did get an inquiry about why we don't circulate the Zoom link. That's because we don't want hundreds of people in the Zoom. It's too hard to moderate. This is how we've been doing our village board meetings. I think the town is going to start doing the meetings. So there was a reason that we didn't circulate the Zoom link. The format for these types of things that we're using is to have people watch via YouTube and then submit questions via YouTube. You know, sometimes, you know, at village board, you know, if it's someone that, you know, needs to enter into the conversation, we have them come into the Zoom. But in terms of manageability, this is the format that we found works the best for these types of virtual meetings. In addition to the fact that we don't want to get hacked.
Right, and then viewers of the meeting are welcome to participate in real time using the comment section on YouTube. So, you know, we feel like this is a good combination of being, you know, managing a Zoom call, but also engaging the public.
All right, let me see if we have any more questions. One last question from Chris. How often are these meetings done? How would I know when they're taking place? This is the first one of these that we've done. We picked 3 o'clock because it seemed like this is the time that like lots of people are doing these types of events. But the village and town board meet twice a month each. Last night we had a joint meeting. People are welcome to come to those as well. This meeting, we were just trying it out to see how it went, to see if we needed to do more. Nothing's really set in stone. We're going to have a debrief and then figure out moving forward, you know, if we're going to do more of these in addition to our regular town and village and joint meetings. But anyone can find our calendar of town board meetings and village board meetings on our websites. Ari, I might need your help on, and when you post on the calendar, does it have the YouTube link? Like, how does that work in terms of?
The YouTube link is in a post on the homepage in the website. And I have put it in some of the calendar events, but most of the calendar events are recurring. So I wasn't able to add them into those, but something like this, we could.
Hi, Matt Williams. Matt has a question about what's the best practice to follow when observing a business in the village not appropriately handling large crowds in front of their business, seeing confused patrons. Basically, what should you do when you see a business that is not compliant with the social distancing rules? Margaret Newman just made me laugh. I'll answer your question in a second, Margaret. It's a Ryan Cronin original, a very old one. Now I totally lost my, so there's a website where people can anonymously report businesses that are not abiding by social distancing. There's actually a special one in addition if it's regarding the treatment of workers. Also, you can, give us a heads up, give the police a heads up. All the guidance is that, there are fines for this, but, we have found that in these instances, that when the police approach, whether it's people, on the R2R without a mask on, or a business that seems to be operating either when they shouldn't be at all or in a way that they shouldn't be, our police have found that a little education goes a long way to get to compliance. It's really important for us to know, definitely if people want to use that confidential form that the state has where you can report these things, you can find that on our resource doc. But give us a heads up, give the chief of police and the police a heads up, and they can go over, have a conversation with folks. I can tell you that I have lots of stories in my head where it was either Rob or it was Corey that went to people and they had a conversation, and the folks that were doing whatever they were doing were like, oh, sorry, I thought I could do it this way. And Corey says, no, you can't do it that way, but you can do it this way. And these conversations, lead to better implementation of proper social distancing. So We're not taking a punitive approach to these things. We're taking a, let's educate folks and see if we can get them compliant. And for the most part, that's been our experience. You would back me up on that, Corey and Rob?
Yeah, I think the new chief of police should put his personal cell phone on the screen though, just so we can, funnel all comments to him. But yes, yes, I agree with you 100%. I do want to
absolutely
add,
agree with you.
yeah, I do want to add one thing in there. I know the chief of police will agree with me. This is a really good question, great answer. We've received I personally, I guess I've received some phone calls. Just my own personal advice. I know there's been some issue with this. A lot of people, the education, I would leave that to say like the police department, the task force, people like that. Sometimes lately with everybody being home and being kind of irritable, you don't want to just directly walk into a business and start going to a business owner and just saying, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. It's probably not going to be received well. So just a piece of advice, I guess we'll say from the authorities is use us. That's what we're there for. This is what we were talking about, paying taxes. Sometimes if it's something simple and easy, I know the police chief and I did one together. We went and talked to a business owner about, certain things, and it depends on what it is, but the education is there. Especially with building department stuff, we like what's called voluntary compliance. I'd rather just talk it out. We would love to do that as a community first. I mean, this is New Paltz, right? So it's just my advice. Call us, let us handle it.
Yeah, I just to echo Corey. I mean, I would strongly encourage people not to take matters into their own hands, not to address those things, because people are stressed, and you may have the best intention in trying to inform somebody that you believe they're doing something wrong, but they may not want to hear that. And we're seeing across the country situations like that are escalating to physical violence. And so we would rather you call us, call the station directly. We would send an officer, and then we would handle that. Depending upon what we find, we would handle it. Or obviously people can make an anonymous complaint through the New York State Pause portal. But I would strongly discourage anybody from taking matters into their own hands.
So Rob, when KT and I were at Main Street and the rail trail recently, and we offered a gentleman who didn't have a mask, if he wanted a free mask, and he gave us the finger, we did the right thing by not continuing to engage him?
Yes, Tim. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
The funny part of that story is he did it as he was going by us, and there was no traffic backing up the bridge. And then suddenly, as we all know, it can happen like that, the traffic backing up the bridge. So he was right there in a convertible in front of us. But yes, Rob always advises me to advise other people to not put yourself in confrontational situations, because we don't want anything escalating. And anyone having a negative or bad experience. So that's a really important point that you brought up, Rob, which is don't feel obligated to be the person. Also, take a deep breath. I get a lot of messages from people, they're not wearing masks and they're all together. And not everybody looks like Leave It to Beaver with, a mom and 2 kids. Like a lot of our, I like the terminology, our little isolation units or pods don't look like what we would traditionally think of as a family, right? I've got, 2 doors, or I shouldn't out people, but there's college students that, there's 4 college students in a house, there's non-traditional family types. You don't know who is, obligated to wear masks together when they're outside and not, distant from others. I think it goes back to just sort of that maxim of like, you don't really know anybody's story, so don't assume that you do. And as leaders in this community, that's our job, is to intervene in situations where people shouldn't be putting themselves in confrontational situations. And we recognize that there's a lot of anxiety about this. Oh boy, do we recognize that. We have anxiety about this stuff. So a lot of what we do is hopefully to be calming, right? And so putting up the signs for the masks and being out there and giving out masks and getting the masks to give them out. It's just a good time to take a deep breath and understand that everybody's stressed out right now. On that note, yes, Matt, I know you weren't going to intervene. I think that's it in terms of questions. Does anybody have any closing thoughts that they would like to communicate out at this time?
There's one more question about masks being available for.
Yes, I said that earlier, but I'll repeat it. There's still, anybody can pick up masks at the police station 24/7, any time of day. There's also hours at Family of New Paltz, as well as you can pick them up at Food Not Bombs on Wednesdays. And if you check out the resource stock on the website, you can find what those times and hours are. But the police station is your quickest and biggest 24/7 window opportunity to do that.
If people don't want to go inside the police station, can they call ahead and someone might bring one out? Same with family?
They don't, we wouldn't bring something out. I mean, because it may only be the dispatcher that's in the building, but there's no contact. They would come into the lobby. So, you know, their dispatcher stays in there, in the communication center, and there's a pull-out drawer, and they would, you know, give them a mask. So there's no physical contact with anybody.
Thanks.
For those of you that aren't familiar with the setup at the police station, when you walk in, you know, the dispatcher is behind, you know, there's, as long as there's nobody else that's in the lobby, you would be by yourself. So, yeah. But I understand there's some people that don't want to go to a police station to pick stuff up. So, you know, there's other opportunities, and if that's a problem, just reach out to us. You have any closing thoughts, Neil, Tim, anybody?
Well, just that if anyone's watching this after, you know, this is airing live, they're always encouraged and welcome to send any other follow-up questions, you know, via our town or village websites. You know, the emails are listed there. So we're doing our best to be as communicative as possible. And, you know, what we hear all the time is like, you can never err on the side of trying to share too much information. So that's just what we're trying to do here this afternoon.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I guess I would just encourage people to, you know, some people find the numbers calming, some people don't, right? I think there's a lot of people, you know, I for one I like the county website and what they're calling the dashboard with the numbers. We're, you know, KT, we had a conversation earlier, we're going to be reaching out to the county to get more specific data for New Paltz for the, you know, number of active and recovered cases over time. We don't have that yet. They weren't breaking it down to that extent. But, you know, we were keeping track of the number of positives, confirmed positives since this started, right? So, you know, remember the pause only started less than 60 days ago. Right. And so when things started, right when we put things on pause and the whole world went crazy, you know, the number of days for the doubling time for the number of days it took for the cases in New Paltz to double, we were looking at 1 to 2 days. The number of cases were doubling every 1, 2, 3, 4 days. 60 days ago, we're now, and the rate of increase was like 50%. So things were going up pretty fast in New Paltz and the rest of the county. But since, you know, the last 60 days, since we've had this pause, though the rate of increase has basically gone down to less than 1%. You know, we haven't had a new case in New Paltz in maybe almost 2 weeks, and the doubling time for the number of cases, we're up to more than 27 days, and we haven't doubled since the last one. So things may seem like, you know, there's anxiety, people are stressed, but things are getting better, right? The goal of all of this was to flatten the curve. Remember, we talked about that a lot 2 months ago. We were talking about it all the time. We have flattened it here in New Paltz, it looks like, and Ulster County. And, I think we're going to be getting closer to meeting the criteria that we need to meet to open up. Things are going to start to open up. We can't relax, but we can still be vigilant with the distancing and the masks. And I guess the final thing is what they're saying is that masks really matter. All right. And so we're going to be wearing masks for probably a long time. So get a mask that you like, get several masks that you like, and wear them around. And, I'll see you out in the trails. That's all I got.
Yeah, I put up the active COVID case timeline again for Ulster County screen sharing. So this has been, we're data geeks, Neil and I, we've been talking about all the different variables and tracking stuff for 2 months now. And it's kind of stuff that's hard to wrap your head around. But I think our county has done a really good job of providing the type of information that can, as Neil said, if data is calming for you. A lot of folks kept looking at the cumulative increases in number of cases, and that number's always going to go up, right? So when we talk about flattening the curve, you have to look at things like active cases. And when you start talking about what are the metrics that are important for reopening, you can see it's more like things that reflect the stress on the healthcare system, like hospitalizations. So we're going to try to recreate this chart that I have up on the screen now for New Paltz, so people can see it for New Paltz in the same way. But we got to get our hands on that data first. I want to thank everybody for doing this today. And like I said, we'll do a debrief. We'll figure out if people thought that this was helpful. I think we had about 50 people watch, so that was great. Let us know if you think we should do it again, or if there's particular topics you want us to focus on. Remember, we're not opening with the rest of the state on May 15th. We still have a little bit of ways to go on reducing the death rate and the hospitalization rate. And also remember, check out that New York Forward website. Reopening is not a flip of a switch, as the governor keeps saying. There's 4 phases, and you can look at the different phased reopening of businesses. For example, education is in the last phase, construction is in the first phase. So you can see that this is flipping of a switch, but we're going to be easing our way back in. So it is very much our intention to continue to listen to the community. And we want to know what your issues are, what you think we're missing, what gaps we need to fill. And we're here for you. So thank you. You want to say goodbye, Tim? Everybody wave goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Feel okay about closing this meeting out? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good afternoon, everyone. Take care.